on which the HPC must, which issues the HPC must determine.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Barb. I understand. Okay.
Okay, are there any other commissioners that want to weigh in on this motion?
This is Commissioner Wagner.
Yes, Commissioner Wagner. You don't always have to wait to be the last one.
Well, I don't know if I'm in line or not, so just want to be careful about that. So yes, Commissioner Bazat makes a very good point that this is a very challenging one, and I would posit from my own perspective that we've heard some very compelling testimony today. Much of it is addressed at zoning, which really, again, is not our purview, and we can't speak to that. And so, you know, I would say that I've been one of the most staunch proponents of property rights of any commissioners that I can recall in my tenure. That said, there is reason to be concerned here. I don't know how open the procedures were for the Board of Zoning Adjustments hearings on this, and can only look at the records that are in front of us. But I would say this: I think it would be in the interest of the developer to go back and have a conversation with the immediate neighbors in this neighborhood. And I would put a caution to this as well, which is they may not get the results that they want in terms of reduction and massing, or the nature and size of the project should we reject this application today. But I would personally like to see a vote of denial for today, to give both parties the opportunity to talk with one another, again with the caution that if they're expecting some reduction in massing, or that they're going to get some sort of clause related to the easements that's going to prevent the project from happening, I think they might be sorely disappointed. But to the aspects of mass, scaling, appropriateness, some very I think appropriate comments related to the notion of the porches appearing to be a front entrance that really are the backside of the house, and garage doors that are the primary entrance, I think are very fair considerations, and bear some consideration in going back to the drawing board on it. So at least from my perspective as a commissioner, I won't be supporting this unless I hear some other testimony from the comments from the commissioners that maybe sway me otherwise. But I would like to encourage commissioners to consider denial, not that this project gets scrapped, not that the massing or overall scale of this gets changed, but that some more sensitive facade developments be considered as a way to help this fit better into the context of the neighborhood on both Portland and Summit, because it's a tricky property, and it's really not one or the other. It's an in-betweener, and so some consideration of that appears appropriate to me. Thank you.
Chair, if you're speaking, you're muted.
I was speaking, you were right, and I was muted. I apologize. I was wondering why nobody was listening to me. Okay, Commissioner Douglas, you have your hand up, but I'm not sure if that's from the first comment you made, or did you have additional comments?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I forgot to put it down.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other commissioners that wish to weigh in on this motion? Okay, hearing none, I'll close deliberation on this motion and call for the vote. So when I call your name, please let me know if you vote in for or against the motion. Commissioner George.
Commissioner George, 4.
Commissioner Bazat.
In favor.
Thank you. Commissioner Douglas.
In favor.
Thank you. Commissioner McDonald. Commissioner McDonald? Commissioner Nelson? Commissioner Peroka?
In favor.
Thank you. Commissioner Wagner?
Against.
And let me go back to Commissioner McDonald. Are you still with us? Commissioner Nelson? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4.
I think we have some microphone issues again. Stuart McDonald shows as present, but shows no microphone. The same with Commissioner Nelson.
Okay, Commissioner Nelson, Commissioner McDonald, can you try pressing, is it *6, mute 6, or what is the?
It's
George,
*6.
do you know what is *6? Thank you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can hear Commissioner Nelson, yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
sorry. Yeah, to my surprise, my vote is no.
Okay. Commissioner McDonald. Commissioner McDonald, did you try pressing *6 to see if you could get yourself unmuted?
Chair, this is George Gause. I don't see Commissioner McDonald on the line anymore.
Okay.
I think he's logged out to log back in again, because I believe based on the sidebar, he was on a computer, not a telephone.
Yep,
And
there he is. I see him now.
Okay. Commissioner McDonald, are you with us now? Commissioner McDonald, did you try pressing *6 to see if you could get yourself unmuted? George, can you tell, is he still with us, or? Is anybody there?
don't you love technology?
I see him on the call, but it looks like his microphone, I changed his status to an attendee, hoping that would help him.
Well, what does he need to do to unmute himself?
The same as what everyone else has been doing.
Chair, this is Commissioner
Yes.
Wagner. Can I ask a question? I'd like to know whether or not deliberation was inadvertently cut short because Commissioners Nelson and McDonald were having trouble, and therefore did we actually have a full commissioner discourse before taking a vote?
Commissioners can hear but not respond when there are these issues. So people can hear the hearing but not respond if they're having the mute difficulties.
I was directing the chair in that my concern is that we may not have had comments and deliberation from at least two of the commissioners.
Right, that occurred to me as well, Commissioner Nelson. And the other thing that's occurring to me
Commissioner
right
Wagner.
now, or Commissioner Wagner, I'm sorry. The other thing that's occurring to me right now is that if you're not, can you do *6 if you're on a laptop or something? How does that work?
No, there's a tab on there's a tab at the bottom when you're on a computer screen, but Commissioner Nelson has already submitted his vote.
Yes, although this is Nelson. I attempted to comment, of course, when my microphone was turned off, but I submit to the wisdom of the chair on this point.
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. Okay, well, I'm going to try one more time. Commissioner McDonald, it sounds like you can hear us, but maybe you cannot. We cannot hear you. So I don't know exactly what to do about that situation.
Perhaps sending an email.
Can you vote? Can you vote by?
Yeah, I would think he
email?
could vote by email, couldn't he? Why not?
Well, right now the vote is 4-2. So either way, it's either 5-2 or 4-3. It would still pass. It still has enough approval votes.
Again, this is Commissioner Wagner. My concern is that we didn't have full discourse because of muted microphones, thereby rendering this vote a little bit suspect.
Commissioner Wagner, Chair to Commissioner Wagner.
Yes.
Do you mean in terms of participation with the contributions from Commissioner McDonald?
I do indeed.
Okay.
Commissioner Peroka.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also have some concerns if Commissioner McDonald wanted to say something and offer his comments, and if we did not hear them. Also, I understand that there is a time factor regarding this decision and any possible decision made later in the day regarding our decision. So I do find this is it would be nice to hear from Commissioner McDonald. Is it possible that he has access to the chat portion of the computer program? And could
Well, I was just
possibly...
going to suggest that maybe he just try calling in on the number instead of trying to get in through a tablet or a computer. Maybe that's more straightforward.
Might I recommend that while we're online, we suspend the vote and suggest that staff email Commissioner McDonald to confirm whether or not he's actually left the meeting for good or is simply having technological difficulties. And in the meantime, suspend the vote where it stands at this moment and allow contributions when he's able to return, if he plans to return.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. George, is that something that we can do there?
Yeah, I just sent an email to him.
Does it look like he's still in the meeting? I can't tell from my screen here, but.
I do not see him on the participant list. And if I'm correct, I don't think we have actually heard from him throughout the meeting.
He was here briefly and spoke.
But did he?
He responded to the roll call as well. All right, well, you know what, let's just go, I think we're just gonna have to go ahead with the vote at this point, given the uncertainty of whether he's still in this meeting or not. So we
No,
have.
hang on. Sorry. This is George.
Okay, all right.
George Gus. He's calling.
Okay, all right.
Right outside?
No, it's not.
What are we supposed to have?
1 and 20.
Where does it say that in the code?
I think there are some folks out there who are not muting their conversations too. That could be a problem.
I wonder if the video is a problem as well.
Well, okay, here, what if it's not? I thought it was 1 and 12, but
Okay. Stuart, are you there?
Hello, finally.
Thank you.
Oh, Commissioner McDonald, welcome.
How are you all doing?
We're waiting anxiously for you.
Well, I've heard everything.
Okay, well, that's good.
I'm getting an echo, but I can live with that.
Yeah, I'm starting to get echo too.
In listening to all the deliberations, I am coming down on the side of Commissioner Wagner. I believe there's enough going on here where the neighborhood import is extremely important. And so I would vote against the resolution.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner McDonald. Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 in favor.
This is Commissioner Wagner. I'd like to address the chair.
Yes, Commissioner Wagner.
In light of Commissioner McDonald's testimony there, I'd like to call for a new vote. I think that would be appropriate.
You know, now I'm having a really hard time because there's a lot of echo going on, and I'm having a hard time understanding you, Commissioner Wagner. What's the issue with that? Does anybody know?
Yeah, I'm sorry if my voice is echoing, but in light of the fact that we didn't have full testimony, I think it would be appropriate to call for a revote.
You mean full discussion?
I think we didn't have full deliberation ahead of the vote because of technical difficulties, and given the testimony that we had from Commissioners Nelson and McDonald post calling for the vote, I think it would be appropriate to have the chair call for a revote.
Okay, well, I will do that just to make sure where we are. Commissioner George.
I approve.
Commissioner Bazat.
In favor of the motion.
Commissioner Douglas.
She's there, but frozen.
Commissioner Douglas, can you hear us? Can you? Yeah, she looks like it is frozen. I wonder. All right, well, I'm going to go on to, I'll come back to you, Commissioner Commissioner Douglas. Commissioner McDonald,
No.
Commissioner Nelson,
No.
Commissioner Peroka.
I am changing my vote to no.
Commissioner Wagner,
Against.
Commissioner Douglas.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just got back in. Something was wrong with my computer. I vote, actually, I'm going to vote no.
Okay, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 no's. Is that right? For the record, I would vote yes, but 1, 2, 3 in favor and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 opposed, so that motion fails. Commissioner Peroka, do you have your hand up there?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the time and the technology involved in this. I would like to explain my change in vote to a no vote. I give a lot of weight to what the architects on the commission have to say about this, and I would like to say that I changed my vote to no. Listening to Commissioner Wagner and echoing what he says about the dimensions of this proposal, and hopefully that the developer will go back and meet with the neighbors. Thank you.
Okay, so that motion is denied, and we'll now move on to our next application, which is the demolition of Loris Hall. And Mr. Goss, I believe that's your staff report on that application.
Yes, so this is University of St. Thomas, Loris Hall. This is in the Summit Avenue West Preservation District. The St. Paul Seminary opened on the current south campus of St. Thomas in 1893-94, funded by James J. Hill. The seminary originally consisted of a campus of 6 buildings, including Loris Hall, all of which were designed by Cass Gilbert. After designing the St. Paul Seminary campus, Gilbert was awarded the commission to design the Minnesota State Capitol building, which would bring him national prominence as an architect. He would go on to design the Woolworth building in New York City, the U.S. Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C. St. Thomas acquired Loris Hall in 1982 from the seminary. In 2016 report by Hess Royce and Company evaluated the National Register of Historic Places eligibility of the St. Paul Seminary campus and concluded that although the seminary campus was historically significant, it lacked enough integrity to convey that significance. In 2015, the university conducted a facility condition assessment, finding corrosion had been reported in the exterior brick wall, brick ties. The building has no exterior wall insulation either. The floor framing is Douglas fir. Structural analysis has determined that removal of the interior load-bearing walls to create larger spaces would require enlarging the building footings. The university's preferred option is for the demolition of Loris Hall to build a new 120,000 gross square foot combined science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, which comes out to be STEAM building. The new infill construction would be located on within the Summit West Heritage District and would require HPC review and action. The commission reviewed the pre-application for the demolition October 5th, 2020. The commission comments from that meeting were, I am greatly concerned about the demolition. Mothballing or rotating the structure should be re-examined. Preserving cultural heritage should be a mission of a university. The profound importance of a Cass-Gilbert design building should outweigh the demolition. Demolition seems to be a short-term solution. Has an environmental impact study been accomplished? The university should be working on creatively integrating Loris Hall into the STEAM building. It is an opportunity to showcase how the past and the future can exist as one. For demolition applications, review is focused for the commission by Legislative Code 73.07, item 9B. 3 apply for this application. Number 1, architectural and historical merit of the building. Loris Hall is an original structure to the St. Paul Seminary, which is now St. Thomas, designed by Cass-Gilbert, who is a noted architect. In the 2017 assessment speculates that Loris Hall is eligible to the National Register individually. Number 2, the effect of the demolition on surrounding buildings. Demolition would result in the loss of another early Cass-Gilbert structure on the campus. Although there has been changes to the campus over time, these early structures serve as a reminder of our past. Alterations have eroded the integrity of the South Campus over the years, however. And number 3, the economic value or usefulness of the building as it now exists in comparison with the value or usefulness of any proposed structures designated to replace the present building or buildings. The university has performed an internal options audit of the usefulness of the building. It is not clear who was involved with the options that were studied. The rank voting criteria was used, or how the $10 million renovation number was determined. Building is currently being used by the university. Staff received 2 technical documents with the submittal: a 2015 building envelope assessment performed by Inspect, INSPEC, and a relocation option from Palasami and Associates. Conclusions were that the building needed major renovations, $1,075,000, and that an economic value is overwhelmingly in favor of new construction. Neither firm appears to have any background in working on historic structures or with historic preservation, according to their company websites. The application also discussed 5 options that were explored. The evaluation system that was used with criteria such as value, enriching outcomes, and investment sustainability. These criteria are poorly defined, subjective, contain no real examples. The scoring seems arbitrarily focused on demolition and new construction. It is unclear who was scoring these options. Although this is a substantial application package, it's deficient of substance. The assessment of the merit, effect, and value of Loris Hall all come from the perspective of a desire to construct a new building on the campus instead of objectively reviewing the existing historic structure. An independent, robust exploration of options is needed with independent reviewers from the community. The question of why the new STEAM building has to be where Loris Hall is located has not been fully explained to the commission. There is no obligation for the university to build a STEAM building if Loris Hall is demolished. The university has open space and parking lots that could be developed into another building, which would avoid demolition costs and sustainability issues such as disposal of the demolition waste. Staff is recommending to the commission denial of the proposed demolition. There are 3 Secretary of the Interior standards that we felt apply in this case. Standard number 2, which is the historic character of the property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historic materials or alterations of features and spaces that characterize a property shall be avoided. this is not met, this guideline is not met, demolition will remove a contributing building. Standard number 5, distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property shall be preserved. Again, demolition of the structure, it would not meet that guideline. And standard number 6, deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and whereas possible, materials. Replacement of missing features shall be substantiated by documentary, physical, or pictorial evidence. So there is documentation that is making a suggestion that the building is deteriorated. Restoration has not been considered. So, questions?
Are there questions for staff from the commissioners?
I'm very sorry to interrupt. This is Allison Suhan Eggers, but George, before we get any further into this item, we left the Portland item with a failed motion. There wasn't we had a motion to approve that was by Barb Bazat and Steve George, and that motion was voted against, but there was not another motion that was proposed.
Okay.
So I don't want us to get any further into Loris Hall until.
This is Commissioner Wagner. I put in a motion to deny approval of the Portland application.
Okay, is there a second for that motion then?
Could you repeat the motion, please?
I move to deny approval of the 542 Portland application.
This is Nelson.
Commissioner McDonald.
Yes, Commissioner
I
McDonald.
second.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I will. Any further discussion on that motion? No, I'm not hearing any further discussion, so I will call.
I have my hand raised.
Oh, I don't see that there. Sorry. Commissioner Peroka.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I support this motion with the clear understanding that I find no fault whatsoever with the staff report, but was persuaded to support this motion of not approval based on the testimony by the neighbors during the public hearing and others, as well as by the compelling arguments by the other commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Peroka. Any other discussion on the pending motion?
Sure.
Commissioner Bazat?
Is the maker of the motion interested in adding a comment to the motion recommending that the developer communicate with the neighborhood in any revision of the project?
That would be seen as friendly, yes. Commissioner Wagner.
Commissioner McDonald, do you accept that friendly amendment?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, any further comments then on the pending motion to deny with the amendment from Commissioner Bazat that the applicant confer with the community members about any further revisions to the application. Hearing none.
Commissioner George, this is Commissioner George. I would like to ask a question, clarification. If we disapprove of this project, do they have the ability to come back for a second round to be able to build a building in this position?
I think my understanding is, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think they have two options. They could do that, or they could appeal it to the city council.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I would say,
Commissioner.
this is Commissioner Wagner, that my intent of denial is not that ultimately to deny a project, rather to get the neighborhood and the developer in discussions and to develop some mutual acceptable approach to the architectural aspects of the project. So this is not intended at all to prevent development. It's really to bring some harmony and accord to the situation where it's clear that the neighborhood is overwhelmingly opposed to the architectural manifestation. Now, some of that may be related to zoning issues, but that's where I was cautioning
reporting tonight for you and your
the neighborhood.
CBS's Mola Lange is going to lead off our coverage tonight from New York City. Good evening, Mola.
Chair,
I'm
can
sorry.
we remind,
Seems I was cut off there.
can we remind participants to please mute their microphones when they're not speaking?
So again, just to summarize, my intent as the putting forward the motion to deny is not a vote against the project. It is merely to help the two sides come together and find hopefully mutually acceptable way forward. Obviously, the neighborhood would have the opportunity to provide their input. We would, as commissioners, get to understand that conversation input and have a second opportunity to find a project that we can approve and that is in better harmony with the neighborhood.
This is Commissioner George.
Yes.
Would it be better to have a motion to postpone the vote until more information is available regarding the developer and the neighborhood?
This is George Gods with staff. I'm going to break in on that one. Sorry, Commissioner, you are up against a 60-day window for this application. You will have to take action tonight. There is nothing keeping the applicant from coming back with a new application, though.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion on the pending motion to deny the application? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote on that motion. Commissioner George.
I oppose.
Let's see. Commissioner Bazat.
No.
Commissioner Douglas.
In favor.
Commissioner McDonald.
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson.
Yes.
Commissioner Peroka.
In favor.
Commissioner Wagner.
Yes.
Okay, so that the motion to deny the application with the encouragement that the developer go back to the neighbors with any further revisions to their plans is passed. And now, jumping ahead, we've had the presentation from staff on Loris Hall. And so now, are there any questions for staff on that application? Questions from the commissioners? I just want to clarify one thing that I think I heard you say in your presentation, George, and that is that there in the materials that the university submitted, they have a budget of $10 million to renovate Loris Hall, and I understand that about almost 1.1 million of that seems to come from the estimate of what it would take to address the deferred maintenance on the building. But I didn't see, and I just want to clarify, the staff did not receive any documentation or support for that $8-some million for the renovation. Is that correct?
Right. We received the building envelope assessment from InSpec, and that was actually done in 2015. So I don't know if that was just an oversight that there is a new, because that was 5 years ago. I don't know if there's a new number that is impacting on that or what. But I don't know the discrepancy in that $10 million number. I don't know where that come from. So.
Yeah, well, I see like in their different options, where the options to mothball it or use it as is, they use that 1.75, not 1.75, but $1,075,000, which is the number that InSpec came up with. But the rest, then they just have like $8 million, and there's nothing that you've seen that supports the rest of that number, right?
Yeah, unless I missed something in the packet. I did not see something.
I didn't see it. Okay, I didn't see it either. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Peroka, do you have a question for staff?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Director Gauze, you had mentioned that UST said that there would be $1.7 million in restoration costs, or what was that? What was that 1.7 million?
That it was from a 2015 building envelope assessment, and it was $1,075,000.
$1,075,000. Thank you.
To do the major renovation.
Major renovations. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Nelson. I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Nelson.
George, this is a technical question in a way. If tonight we vote to support the staff recommendation, I think there's a pretty good chance that would be appealed to the City Council. And so my question is, in such a case, what record goes up to the City Council?
Everything the commission has, including our minutes, goes on to City Council. So everything everything we have posted on our website that was received from the university, received in written testimony, and whatever the discussion is at tonight's meeting, that gets entered into the record for the City Council appeal.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Hi, Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Bezat.
In relation to that question, the additional question is, does any resolution memorializing a decision go along with the motion?
Yes, sorry, yes.
Implementation?
Yeah.
So that if, regardless of the decision, if there are some additions to the draft resolution that might explain any decision, those would be added and forwarded to City Council, correctly?
Correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Douglas, did you have a question for staff?
Yes, I did. It's about the cost again. I know there were two different plans, Plan A and Plan B. One was to not include Loris Hall in the STEM project, and then the one to include Loris Hall in the STEM project. How much was that total?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head. I was looking mainly at the renovation costs, and what was stated was that using the rank vote criteria, it would be near $10 million for the renovation of the building.
Right, but did that in? So
That was not. We're not discussing any new construction at this meeting. We left that all out. So this is just the demolition. Yeah.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Perouka, did you have a question for staff?
No, I just forgot to lower my hand. Sorry.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for staff on this application? Okay. Maybe I'm just to make sure, I'm going to run through the whole thing just to see if we're not missing anybody. Commissioner George, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Bezat.
No further questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Douglas.
No further questions.
Commissioner McDonald.
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelson.
No.
Commissioner Perouka.
No.
Thank you. And Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I know that we received a lot of written testimony or comments on this matter. Is that right, George?
Yes, but the applicant needs to present.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm skipping ahead here. All right. Okay, now I will ask the applicant to present their application to the commission. And just a reminder that we've received all the materials that you've submitted to the commission, and we've reviewed those materials, and you have a total of 15 minutes on behalf of the applicant to present your application to the commission.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I truly hope that you can hear me.
I can hear you, yeah. That's
Awesome.
Good news.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, almost evening to you and the members of the commission and the community that are listening to this. My name is Mark Vansgaard, and I serve as the Vice President for Business Affairs and the Chief Financial Officer for the University of St. Thomas. With me on the call today is Amy McDonough, the Chief of Staff for the university's president, Greg Fenton, the head of our design team and principal from BWBR, Andrew Schmidt, historic consultant with Streamline Associates, and Tammy Deem, outside land use counsel with Winthrop and Weinstein. As you clearly are aware, St. Thomas has asked the Heritage Preservation Commission to approve a permit for the demolition of a building located on the university's south campus known as Loris Hall. Our very extensive application package provides over 160 pages of background information on not only our request to remove Loris Hall, but also our plan to build a new state-of-the-art science, technology, engineering, arts, and math building that we refer to as STEAM, where Loris Hall stands today. Following the submission of our application, we received the staff report prepared by the HPC staff. After reading the staff's recommendations, we wanted to address some of the concerns that were raised, and we did so in a supplemental 8-page letter that was submitted to the HPC just before Thanksgiving. Since all of you have had a chance to review the written materials, we will use our time today to address a few key points and then answer questions that you may have. Most importantly, we wanted to spend a few minutes talking with you about the staff's recommendation that HPC deny our request for a demolition permit and tell you why we disagree with that recommendation. The first point I would like to make is that Loris Hall does not have significant architectural or historic merit. The staff report notes that Loris Hall has significant architectural and historic merit because it, quote, was designed by Cass Gilbert, who is a noted architect, end quote. The report also notes that a 2017 historic assessment by Hess Rossi and Company, quote, speculates that Loris Hall is eligible to be considered for the National Historic Register, end quote. We disagree with both of those conclusions. First, as we highlighted in our written materials, not all buildings designed by prominent architects are architecturally or historically significant. The National Park Service, the agency charged with reviewing and granting requests for historic status, is very clear about this, noting in their guidance that a property is not architecturally significant simply because it was designed by a prominent architect. The Park Service uses the example of Frank Lloyd Wright and argues that not every building designed by Frank Lloyd Wright should be eligible for protection. Instead, you must look at the building itself. Using the same logic, the fact that Loris Hall was designed by Cass Gilbert does not, in and of itself, mean that Loris Hall should be protected as an architecturally significant building. Instead, it is important to look at the context within which the building was designed. We provided extensive information on this topic in our written submission, but the bottom line is that Loris Hall lacks the historic and architectural merit and should not be preserved simply because of who designed it. Second, the staff report suggests that a 2017 assessment by Hess Rossi and Company supports a finding that Loris Hall is significant from an architectural and historic perspective. In fact, the 2017 assessment is neutral on whether Loris Hall is independently, architecturally, or historically significant. The National Register of Historic Places nomination for the West Summit Avenue Historic District makes it clear that Loris Hall does not possess the character defining features that historic district seeks to preserve. The district is recognized as, quote, the largest unbroken avenue of colonial revival and classical revival style architect designed houses in the Twin Cities, end quote. The assessment by Hess Rossi notes that West Summit Avenue obtains its character from 200 residential properties built between 1900 and 1929. Loris Hall is not one of these properties. In fact, according to the report, the inclusion of the St. Paul Seminary, the University of St. Thomas, and the McAllister College campuses within the historic district boundaries was done to create one continuous district, not because these campuses were examples of the buildings that deserve protection. Again, our written response to the staff report provides much greater detail to support our position about Loris Hall as a structure is not historically or architecturally significant, and we encourage you to review this information carefully. The second factor that the HPC is required to consider is the impact that the demolition of Loris Hall will have on surrounding buildings. The staff report notes that, quote, demolition would result in the loss of another early Cass Gilbert structure on campus, end quote, but does not provide any evidence that the demolition will negatively impact surrounding buildings. Loris Hall is an island within a sea of parking lots. It is not a residential home, and the removal of Loris will not leave a hole in an otherwise well-organized row of residential historic homes. In fact, its demolition will really have no impact on any surrounding buildings. As a result, this criteria on impact to surrounding buildings is not a reason to deny the demolition permit. The third and final factor that the HPC is to consider is the economic value or usefulness of the building as it is now in comparison with the value or usefulness of any proposed structures that are designed to replace the building. Loris Hall, as it exists now, and even as modified or altered, cannot compete with the economic value or usefulness of the proposed steam building that would be built in its place. The staff report suggests that, quote, independent, robust exploration of options is needed with independent reviewers from the community, end quote. While the independent community review is not required by the code, in evaluating our options, the university has engaged in extensive community discussions. We have met with neighborhood and community groups to get feedback on our proposals, both the proposed demolition of Loris and the proposed construction of the new steam facility in its place. These conversations have helped us explore and address potential concerns. These conversations also provided us with useful feedback with respect to future design plans. As a result of these discussions, the Mac-Groveland Community Council voted to support our proposal 14-1. The Union Park District Council voted in strong majority to support our proposal. The West Summit Neighborhood Advisory Committee also discussed the proposal at length to provide a forum for immediate neighbors to discuss their concerns. Supportive voices in these discussions included engineers and architects that live in the neighborhood. While the Summit Avenue Residential Preservation Association, SARPA, voted to oppose the demolition of Loris Hall, we have received support from several other Summit Avenue homeowners. By engaging in community discussions, the university has, in fact, had independent voices participate in the process. Importantly, future community participation is guaranteed through the permitting process that will be required before the new steam building can be constructed. Next, I would like to make it really the next point I would like to make is that in evaluating the economic value or usefulness of Loris Hall as it exists today, it is important to note that Loris Hall currently provides little benefit to the university's students or to the broader community. First, the building itself is extremely inefficient and lacks sustainability. It was built in 1894. It is not insulated. It lacks an efficient heating system. It has no air conditioning and poor and limited airflow. We estimate that the gas utility costs to support Loris are 40 to 60% higher than the equivalent amount of space in a new LEED certified building. In addition, over 72 window air conditioners are installed in Loris every summer to mitigate the excessive heat and make the space usable for those who work there. While we do not have an accurate estimate of the electric energy use of these individual units versus a modern central air conditioning system, it is widely recognized that these type of window units are highly inefficient as it relates to energy use. Even with a significant financial investment, which we estimate to be over $10 million, the building's construction and configuration limit the way in which we can use it. The staff report questions whether the $10 million estimate is accurate, and we address this in our written response. The actual estimate for renovation is $10,422,680, and we would be happy to share the details of this written estimate with the HPC staff. Given the inherent limitations, the building has little to no economic value or usefulness. In contrast, the proposed 120,000 gross square foot LED LEED certified STEAM building will provide adaptable program space for collaborative, highly technical, and equipment-intensive learning that is required for studying engineering, health sciences, technology, math, and the arts. Construction of the proposed project will allow the university to optimize academic offerings while also providing community amenities. Investment in the STEAM complex will provide world-class space to accommodate intentional enrollment and diversity growth in engineering and health fields. The ability to grow these programs in a world-class physical complex will attract top students and faculty to St. Paul from around the country and globe who seek premier STEAM experiences and degrees. The complex will also provide community space open to STEAM and music partnerships with St. Paul public and private K-12 schools. The complex and its surrounding green space will be an amenity to the neighborhood, and the performance and gathering spaces will make it an asset to the greater St. Paul community. Finally, from the perspective of honoring history, by allowing for the demolition of Loris Hall and the construction of the new STEAM building in its place, the university will actually contribute to the magnificence that Horace Cleveland imagined when he designed Summit Avenue. Currently, the only portion of Loris Hall that is remotely visible from Summit Avenue is the fire escape door at the north end. By replacing Loris with a new architecturally designed STEAM building, St. Thomas will add a summit-facing building to campus and increase the stateliness of Summit Avenue that was promoted in the nomination for the West Summit Avenue Historic District by the National Register of Historic Places. All of these points support our position that the demolition of Loris Hall is justified under the code. In addition to addressing the specific criteria that should be considered by the HPC in evaluating whether to grant our demolition permit application, I do want to spend a minute talking about two additional points. First, the staff report questions whether the proposed STEAM building that will replace Loris Hall could instead be located somewhere else on campus. Prior to moving forward with this application, the university invested a significant amount of time and money exploring other options for the location of the proposed STEAM facility. In addition to the limitations imposed by the conditional use permit, the location of the STEAM building relative to the science and engineering facilities is important. The connectivity and close relationship to the existing science and engineering spaces in O'Shaughnessy Hall and Owens Hall is important to both students and faculty, as classrooms, labs, learning spaces, and offices are physically close to each other for those students learning in the STEAM fields. While other options were explored, placing the new STEAM building on any other part of campus more distant than the proposed location or trying to build around Loris Hall would be ineffective from an educational standpoint. Finally, I would like to make sure you understand that the university has a strong commitment to historic preservation. The university has a strong commitment to recognizing and honoring the rich history of the West Summit Avenue neighborhood, the city of St. Paul, and the University of St. Thomas. The university does not take historic preservation lightly and has a proven track record of investing in preservation. Emmanuel Masqueret is another noted architect who is known for his design of the St. Paul Cathedral and the Minneapolis Basilica. The university is fortunate to have two Masqueret buildings on campus, the Chapel of St. Thomas Aquinas and Ireland Hall. Over the past 2 years, the university has spent approximately $24 million on interior and exterior renovations and expansion of those buildings. Throughout the process of considering the demolition of Loris Hall, as well as the possible STEAM building, which will replace it, the university has sought to include technical expertise by engaging consultants with deep experiences in historic preservation. Andrew Schmidt, who is on with me today, has nearly 30 years of experience in all aspects of historic consultation, including identifying historic resources and completing mitigation measures. He has consulted with federal, state, and local agencies throughout the country. Andrew has authored more than 25 successful National Register nominations and has prepared preservation tax credit applications. In addition, he has been the principal investigator for the HPC-sponsored neighborhood surveys. It is worth noting that
Mr. Vansgaard, I
Yes.
just want to interrupt you here for a minute. This is Chair Kimker. So, you know, you're allowed 15 minutes and we're just over that. So I'd ask you just to wrap this up quickly in the next, 30 seconds or so.
Thank you. It's worth noting that the HPC itself has recognized the work that St. Thomas has done in connection with historic preservation, giving St. Thomas an award in the category of new addition to a historic building in 2010, following our expansion of Sitzman Hall on the corner of Cleveland and Summit. I mention these things to assure you that honoring history is not just something we talk about at St. Thomas, it's something we are committed to doing. And St. Thomas will honor the history of Loris Hall and the legacy of Cass Gilbert through the demolition process, as well as in the connection of the construction of the new STEAM facility. In conclusion, we ask the HPC this afternoon to carefully review the 3 criteria that should be considered when evaluating a request for the demolition project. In doing so, we urge you to acknowledge that Loris Hall does not have a significant architectural historic merit and that its demolition will not have a significant impact on the surrounding buildings. And maybe most importantly, we urge you to find that the economic value and usefulness of Loris Hall is significantly outweighed by the economic value and usefulness of the building that will replace it. We recognize that the HPC is required to make written findings to support its decision, and we know that the staff has only been provided with proposed findings to deny the application. In our response letter to the HPC staff report, we included a number of proposed findings for your consideration to approve the demolition permit. Based on these findings and all of the materials included in our application, we respectfully request that the HPC approve our request for a demolition permit for Loris Hall and work with the university to design the new STEAM building. Doing so will allow the university to provide world-class space to accommodate intentional enrollment and diversity growth in engineering and the health and digital media fields in close collaboration with the arts and sciences programs. At the same time, the new building and the university will find ways to continue to honor the rich and diverse history of the University of St. Thomas, St. Paul, and the Twin Cities as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vansgaard. Are there any questions for the applicant from Commissioner? Commissioner Peroutka.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vansgaard. Did I hear you correctly that you said that that Loris Hall has no connection with a historic figure?
No, you did not hear me correctly.
Okay.
I said that just because a notable architect designed the building does not automatically make it preservation worthy.
Okay, thank you.
I actually have a question for you, Mr. Vansgaard. This is Commissioner Kimker. Did St. Thomas, did the university make any effort to renegotiate or try to amend that conditional use permit with the city to allow for the construction of your STEAM building on another site? I mean, you've done that several times in the past to expand the footprint of the campus.
Unfortunately, Madam Chair, the conditional use permit of the university is a very contentious topic. It's the subject of various lawsuits in the early 2000s, and we have not amended the conditional use permit for the university since that time. It was impractical to open up that topic for this particular purpose.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
This is Commissioner Nelson. I have 2.
Okay, Commissioner Nelson.
Good evening, Mr. Vansgaard. As I do have to compliment St. Thomas on the thoroughness and completeness of the materials that you provided. Aside from Loris Hall, if I have this right, there are 3 other of the original seminary buildings still standing. There's Grace Hall, and kind of utility building that used to be the gym, and then the Masquerade designed Cretan Hall, or I might have
that's almost correct, Commissioner. Grace Hall was not a Cass Gilbert building, but Cretan Hall and the utility building along with Loris Hall were. So there's 3 remaining Cass Gilbert buildings from the original 6.
Right, and then the other one is the Masquerade building, right?
No, the Masquerade buildings that we have are on our north campus, the Chapel of St. Thomas Aquinas and Ireland Hall.
Okay. My first question is this. In Mark Manderscheid's November 23rd letter, he asserts that it has been in the long-term plans of UST to demolish all of the remaining old buildings on the North Campus. And I'd like to give you an opportunity to respond to that.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think you meant the South Campus, which is where Loris Hall is at.
Yes.
And that's okay. You know, and I know Mark, and we've talked about many topics many times. And I think he oversteps what he believes the case is. Ireland Hall, a Masquerade building on our North Campus, was built as a residence hall. It's still used as a residence hall. We put over $7 million into that particular building in the last 2 years, and we're going to continue to use it as a residence hall. It has a very positive impact on our students' educational and maturation process. Loris Hall was built as a residence hall for seminary students back in 1894. It was converted, I believe, in the late 80s to an office building. And its use for student education and maturation processes going forward is just, it's just not there. Cretan Hall, the other Cass Gilbert building on South Campus, was built as a residence hall. It's still being used as a residence hall. And we expect that in the future, it'll continue to be used for a residence hall. The utility building that you mentioned, I'm not even sure there's a name for it. We've used for a variety of things over the years, and it is a good utility building, and there are no plans to do anything with that or Cretan Hall at this point in time. So I think Mark is speculating, maybe inappropriately.
I think you said toward the end of your presentation that it's the plan to somehow honor Loris Hall and Cass Gilbert in the demolition of Loris Hall. Did I have that right? And if so, could you explain what you mean?
Well, thank you. I can. So today, Loris Hall is full of faculty and staff offices. There are a few music practice rooms that students enter the building in on occasion. Today, a student goes into Loris Hall. They don't know it's a Cass Gilbert building. There is nothing architecturally interesting from a student perspective in the building. And it has no visibility as a building that's the result of the relationship between Archbishop John Ireland, who founded the St. Paul Seminary, his donor, James J. Hill, and Cass Gilbert. It's a very proud and historic tradition that St. Thomas greatly appreciates. So our recommendation is that with the demolition of Loris Hall, we use components of that building inside of the new STEAM complex, and then set up a permanent display honoring John Ireland, James J. Hill, and Cass Gilbert, and the historic foundation of the St. Paul Seminary. Think of 3D models, think of interactive displays, certainly think of picture boards and narrative, but something that will allow the estimated 3,000 to 3,500 students a day coming through the new STEAM building to really understand what historically Loris Hall, the St. Paul Seminary, and Cass Gilbert did for that area of campus.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Commissioner Douglas.
Yes, thank you. I just have a question concerning the cost for the two different plans, for the STEAM plan by itself versus renovating and keeping the Loris Hall building within the plan. What is the difference in the cost?
Thank you, and I'm going to call on Greg Fenton, our lead architect from BWBR, to answer that.
Good evening, Commissioner Douglas. Yes, Mark referenced a $10,400,000 estimate in his introduction here this evening, and that was as recently as 3 weeks ago, McGough Construction on 11/24/2020 provided confirmation of the $10 million budget, and that was the $10,400,000 estimate for the renovation. Not only renovation, but modernization of the project. And what that would mean is a reduction of square footage in the STEAM building if it were to remain. So we do have data to support at least a $10 million cost to renovate and modernize Loris Hall.
And Greg, could you comment on the $1.7 million number that
Sure.
Commissioner Douglas was questioning as well?
The $1.7 million number was a minimal refurbishment of the exterior with no interior construction, no modernizing of systems or repair of work to the inside. That would be a cost to tuck point, windows, roof, to keep it or make it in a make the exterior envelope in a sound condition.
Okay, but I think I'm still a little confused. So what would be the total cost without Loris Hall for the new STEAM facility?
Well, go ahead, Mark. This is Greg Fenton again. The budget that the university has made is $80 million for construction.
So that's the brand new STEAM facility without Loris Hall.
It will be that in either situation. If they have no more money, as we've been told, than the 80 budgeted. So if they need to invest in Loris, then it results in a smaller STEAM building. And Mark can confirm that.
Yeah, that's correct, Greg. So Commissioner Douglas, the cost of the design and construction process will be about $80 million. The furniture, fixtures, equipment, and everything else will be an additional $20 million. So it's about a $100 million project. But whatever is spent on Loris would come out of the budget for the new STEAM building.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? I do have a couple here. So the inspect report, which is from 2015, identifies a number of issues which I refer to as deferred maintenance. You know, I mean, it indicates, for example, that tuck pointing has not been there's not been tuck pointing of the mortar joints for several decades, and that there's damage and cracked masonry that had not been addressed. And so since that report was from 2015, was any of that work from 2015, since then, undertaken, or was there a decision to stop investing in maintaining the building at some point?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There has not been significant work on Loris's exterior since that report came out in 2015. And I'm not sure it was really a decision not to invest in Loris as much as it is. There's just so many other priorities around campus that we have to continually weigh those priorities and put our limited funds where we need them most.
Okay, thanks. And then the other question, I'm confused about this issue about this renovation budget. So you have the 1.7 million, but $1,075,000 that comes out of the inspect report to sort of stabilize the building. And then there's that additional 8 million some dollars to renovate it, to renovate the interior, to make it useful, I guess and I didn't see any support for that larger number, the $8 million number in the materials that were submitted to us. But did I understand you that you have an estimate of that is that from McGough Construction or?
Yeah, thank you again, Madam Chair. So the million or the 1.7 million was from the inspect report was the exterior envelope of the building. In addition to that, the entire HVAC plant needs to be redone. And there are a variety of other major components of the building that would have to be restabilized or redone. We do have a estimated $10,420,000 budget number that has been validated by McGough, and we'd be happy to share that with you and or staff.
Okay, but you had to
we have it.
I mean, up to this point, you have not shared that with them, right?
No, we have not, because we wanted to get it verified by McGough, and that didn't happen until essentially the day before that we sent the response to the HPC staff letter.
Okay, and did McGough, and I don't know the answer to this question, I don't know if they are a company that regularly works in historic preservation areas, or if they evaluated it in context with a historic preservation viewpoint.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. In fact, McGough Construction was the firm that renovated and added onto Sitzman Hall that the HPC gave us an award for in 2010. So they are very experienced in preservation related activities.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant from commissioners? And once again, I remind people that if you're not speaking, to please mute your phones, because we're getting a little bit of background noise here. George, I'd go back to you I know that we received a lot of written testimony and comments, and those were, at least as of approximately noon today, those were all provided to the commission, and we've reviewed those materials. Do you want to run through those for us, or
Yes.
Is there any additional material we should know about?
Yeah, everything that was received was received by noon today, and it was posted online, and it was sent to commissioners. I'll go through that list. Individual folks that sent something in: Kate Baxter Hoff, Jack Fee, and I apologize if I mispronounce someone's name. Sarora Jost, Winston Kaler, Mark Manderscheid, Kathy Plessner, Art Puinko, Craig Stone, and Rachel Westmeyer. And then we have a number of groups that sent letters in for consideration as well. The Cass Gilbert Society, Historic St. Paul, Mac Groveland Community Council, Minnesota chapter of Society of Architectural Historians, the president of St. Thomas, and the chair of the St. Thomas Board of Trustees. That was a combined letter. Summit Avenue Residential Preservation Association, Union Park Community Council, University of St. Thomas Undergraduate Student Government, and University of St. Thomas Vice President of Strategic Initiatives, Mei Kao Hong. all sent letters in for consideration.
Thank you. So we'll now accept comments from the public on this application. And again, since this has been kind of a long meeting tonight, I'll just reiterate what kind of the rules of the procedure are. First of all, the speakers need to state your name and address for the record before beginning your presentation. And all presentations should be confined to the topics of the hearing. And with respect to that, I'll just remind you that what the issue that's under consideration today is just the demolition of Laura's Hall, and it's not the construction of the proposed new steam building. And each speaker may speak only once. And if you're a person who's provided written testimony to the commission, you can be assured that we have received that testimony, and it's been considered, and it does not, you should not use your time to speak today to repeat testimony that you've provided in a written format. And you have up to 5 minutes to speak, to address the commission. And so I will open it up to any public comments on this application.
I would like to speak.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Mark Manderscheid. I live at 2136 Goodrich Avenue. I'm within 1 block of the University South Campus. I have read the materials that have been submitted since I wrote my letter to you commissioners, and I'd like to make just 3 quick points. I'm in favor of the university building a steam building. I think it's an excellent idea, and I hope they go ahead and do it, but this really is not an either-or proposition. The university's South Campus has room to build a 120,000 square foot steam building with a Summit Avenue frontage. There also is significant space that is available to the south of the Grand Avenue area. And I would note that the university has just within the last few years constructed its facilities and design building on the south side of the Grand Avenue extension. And so there are opportunities, I think, available such that this is not an either-or proposition for meeting the university's needs, but instead it is a choice based primarily on financial considerations. Many of those who wrote expressed concerns about the issues of diversity and inclusion. One of the things to me that is remarkable about the 1894 seminary is that it was the Protestant James J. Hill who, in an act of philanthropy, gave the seminary buildings and an endowment to the Archdiocese of St. Paul. This is during a period of time in which there was a significant anti-Catholic sentiment. And here we have an example of ecumenical activity and reaching across religious lines. Finally, then, I would make the point of precedent. What we have here, I'm a lawyer by trade, so precedent is something I think about. So here we have the institutional owner of the oldest institutional property in the West Summit Avenue Historic District, which is a contributing building to that area, coming in and saying, we want to tear down this building because we don't want to spend the money on renovation and because they have a project budget. Imagine the message that that would send to the homeowner on Summit Avenue or elsewhere who comes in and says, I have a budget of $200,000. And if you make me put in divided light windows, then I won't have enough money to put in granite countertops. I live in a 1924 home, and I've spent the money to put in simulated divided lights and a Unico system for air conditioning. We all make choices in life, and I believe that there is the opportunity here to set a horrible precedent that dollars decide what survives and what doesn't survive for historic preservation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manderscheid. Any other members from the public? I can see Kathy. I can't see your last name on there. Kathy P. I see you have your hand up there, so I will recognize you. But you seem to be muted, so you need to unmute yourself. Kathy P. Are you?
Okay, I'm unmuted,
There
right? Okay,
Yes,
very
now
good.
you are. Yeah.
Well,
Well, I need you to state your full name and address
okay,
for the
all
record.
right, very good. My name is Kathy Plessner, and I live at 2038 Summit Avenue. And I'll be honest, I came here with great hope. I have been really moved and hopeful with your, because I read the minutes of your August 24th meeting, and I attended the listening session where you talked about, well, I appreciated the need to practice using simple language and not complicated preservation lingo that can be restrictive. I think that and I was so, given the first core value of the 2020, St. Paul's 2020 comprehensive plan is equity and inclusion, I wrote that I'm grateful for your work towards equity as a goal of preservation and your recognition of the need to look for equity and inclusion everywhere in the city with people of all backgrounds. Now, we're the whitest, and you're not looking for equity here. You know, it's just like, I think about the idea of community-based preservation. You said exploring things. I said, exploring things like the need to focus on community-based preservation and what is of value to our communities. You know, I think we need to pull together. I came here to support your wonderful work of our community responded to this. I don't know that you'll ever have more evidence of a building. This is for the comprehensive plan, sustainability. You read those. The credentials, or you read the letters. I don't see how you can just dismiss this out of hand. I live 2 doors down from a Cass Gilbert building, but I'm going to tell you what motivates me to talk tonight. And it's a man that I met soon after our mayor was elected. Jane Prince, Council Member Prince held a meeting, listening session. I'm big on listening sessions. A listening session at a firehouse in the winter in the East Side. And I went there with a colleague of mine from McAllister Groveland. I didn't go with him, but we both ended up there. We were the only people not from the East Side. And my colleague, we were talking about what we think about for our communities. And he mentioned his ability to walk to the Nook for a burger. And this man who Jane Prince calls remarkable, he is a retired teacher and so active on the East Side. And he said, man, I don't feel safe walking to my car. And if I did, I don't have anywhere to walk to. I was next on that agenda. I'm a privileged woman who lives on Summit Avenue, and I had to face this man eye to eye. And I said to him, all I have to offer you is that my street is as poorly maintained as your street, and my neighbor calls it a washboard. But I pledged that I would try to create more equity in our city. This takes away. If we have to, if the St. Thomas, that $10 million, is that nothing? How privileged is that to dismiss that amount of money? What they are doing so many things for diversity. I can't tell you how incensed I am by this meeting. I'm speechless, but I couldn't be more disappointed. I believed you meant what you said. I believe that there was sincerity there, and there's nothing. You haven't listened or heard to one thing. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that wish to speak on this application? Any other members of the public that wish to speak on this application?
Commissioner Kim Kerr, we have a Donald Weinkoff. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. He has his hand up.
Okay. Yeah, I can't see that for some reason, but I will. Yep, you are recognized for sure. McDonough, Mr. McDonough.
Donald.
Yeah, my name is Don Weinkoff. I'm the Dean of Engineering at the University of St. Thomas, but I'm actually, I'm coming to you as a member of the public as well. I actually live in the Heritage Preservation Commission District. My address is 997 Portland Avenue. I know you've asked everyone to mention their addresses, but I just want to point out that so I've spent I believe in the purpose of the HPC. As I said, I have refurbished a home which was built in 1902, and within constraints of the HPC. But I also believe in value that we're going to be bringing in the construction of this building. In terms of its educational value to students. I think, as Kathy was just mentioning, its connection to this community is going to be a completely different asset. Loris Hall, is, yes, it was designed by Cass Gilbert, but also I would add that that so was the Clarence Johnson Chapel, which can't even be seen from our St. Thomas campus because of the existence of Loris Hall. So we have some conflicting things here, but I also would add to the idea of building a stately enterprise, a building which reflects the value of what we saw as Summit Avenue in the early 1800s, prior to the construction of Loris Hall. Through Horace Cleveland's vision for a stately, boulevard extending from St. Paul to the river. So I am a staunch supporter, not only for my own work, but what this will mean for our students, what this will mean for the St. Thomas, or the St. Paul and St. Thomas community. I think there's a huge opportunity here, and I also see what Loris Hall is. If you have questions about Loris Hall, I would advise you to just walk through the building, see what it is. The limitations of construction of that building not facilitate the mission of our work as educators. I'm sorry, there seems to be a little bit of
Right, I apologize for that, Mr.
No concerns. This is our 2020 life. But
if everybody would just please, if you're not speaking, which would only be Mr. Weinkoff right now, please mute your phones or your tablets or whatever you're using, so that we're not getting a lot of background interference here.
And as I said, in terms of the Heritage Preservation Commission, as someone who lives in the district, I love your work. I live by it. We build great neighborhoods around your work, and St. Thomas is living out that mission. And I think, as I've seen the ideas that are being presented around the new STEAM building, that this is a real opportunity for us to actually finish the work, the vision that Horace Cleveland had for Summit Avenue. Loris Hall was designed actually almost in defiance of what Horace Cleveland envisioned. So I would encourage the Heritage Preservation Commission to think about what Horace Cleveland's design was, not what Cass Gilbert's design was. We are talking about an opportunity to complete Summit Avenue. And as a member of the HPC, or as a citizen within the HPC, strongly encourage the commission to bring that into consideration, bring that vision for a grand and stately boulevard back into fruition. And I'm going to tell you right now, as someone who is participating and supporting the work that's going to go on inside of that building, I will guarantee that it is connected to the community. I will guarantee that it's connected to the river. I'll guarantee that St. Paul is going to benefit from this. So that's my comments, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Weinkauf. Anybody else that wants to speak to this application? I have two hands raised. Mr. McDonough, Ms. McDonough, I can't tell for sure.
Yeah, this is Amy McDonough, and I just want to quickly, I'm the Chief of Staff to President Julie Sullivan at University of St. Thomas. And just to add a little bit to what Don's said, and to reflect on your previous conversation you had about the Portland Avenue property, I saw you take in a lot of feedback from neighbors and then change your mind. And I just want to say, I've been working with neighborhood groups, very early on this project because we wanted to make sure that neighbors knew what we were doing. We were very transparent about it. We wanted to get their feedback. And you can tell from some of the comments that were posted that our response from neighbors about this project has been really positive. And I just want to note that. You also got a letter from our students. Students are really concerned about how we spend money on campus, and it means a lot to them to invest our tuition dollars and also donor dollars, since those are our two sources of income, on investments that will directly benefit students. And I think that feedback is something that I hope you will take to heart as well. But I especially just wanted to mention neighbors because it has been really important to us to make sure that we have neighbor input, and it has been overwhelmingly positive. And as you know, I heard you, Terry, talk briefly about the conditional use permit. So there are limitations put on St. Thomas about where we can build. We have to be very prudent with how we spend our real estate on campus. And that is a result of working with the neighbors. So it's part of the reason that we're in this position and why this location is so important to us. But again, want you to know that we've been working closely with the neighbors because I know how important that is to this group.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public here to comment on this application? George, are you seeing any indication of anybody that's trying to comment but's having difficulty?
I do not. Amy and Kathy still have their hands up. I assume they just didn't take them down. So, but that's right, the only two.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And then if there's no, I just want to make sure is there anybody else who wished to speak to this application that hasn't had a chance to speak yet? If not, I'll close the public hearing at this point. And I will ask for a motion on this application. Oops, now, so Commissioner Bazat.
I think it's part of my job description, make motions. I move to deny the application for demolition of Loris Hall at the University of St. Thomas. As per the findings of fact and conditions in the draft resolution, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report. I would like to amend a suggested motion to say, please refer to the resolution memorializing this decision, and I will eventually post discussion or during the discussion have some suggested amendments to the resolution.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not exactly sure I understand that motion. Can you restate that for me, please?
I'm moving to deny the application for demolition of Loris Hall at the University of St. Thomas as per the findings of fact and conditions in the resolution, not draft resolution, but resolution, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report. That's the end of my motion. I just wanted to make a verbal note that I have some recommended amendments to the resolution as well that will memorialize this decision and perhaps further explicate or explain, should this motion pass, why this motion passed.
Okay, thank you. And do I have a second for that motion?
I second the motion, Commissioner Douglas.
Thank you, Commissioner Douglas. And I will open the floor to Commissioner deliberation on that motion. Commissioner Bazat.
Well, I might as well dive in here just to talk about the things that, given, of course, our previous conversation regarding both neighborhood considerations and architectural considerations, we have a draft resolution in front of us that would memorialize any decision, again, as I say, should this motion pass. But I think that there are some additions that will help explain any denial of an application to demolish a contributing structure within an historic district. And I think I would like to see an addition to the resolution. And it's kind of long, guys. Sorry about this. I do have it in writing if you need me to email it if it works, but please bear with me, fellow commissioners. St. Paul Municipal Code 7301 provides that, quote, the council of the city of St. Paul hereby declares as a matter of public policy that the preservation, protection, perpetuation, and use of areas, places, and buildings having a special historical interest, that was weird, is a public necessity and is required in the interest of the health, prosperity, and welfare of the people. And in addition, the St. Paul City Council adopted a 2040 comprehensive plan. The chapter on heritage preservation states
Commissioner Bazat, we lost you.
it muted itself. I think, is this a sign that I should shut up? Essentially.
Not at all. Please go ahead.
Essentially, I think it just makes sense to explain where the decisions are coming from. And, you know, for the future, we might want to include some of this stuff in our future resolutions. But the current number 2 would remain as number 4 on the resolution if folks are following with our resolution. Current number 3 would remain as 5. But there, I also have a quote regarding the standards for evaluating a request for demolition of a building located in the Summit Avenue West Heritage Preservation District. And I think it would be a good idea to include some basis. Loris Hall, built in 1894, is the oldest building on the campus of the University of St. Thomas. It's a result of the collaboration of three of St. Paul's most influential citizens, John Ireland, James J. Hill, and Cass Gilbert. Loris Hall thus embodies an important element of the, quote, identity and sense of place of St. Paul. As a side note, and not part of my recommendation for a resolution, I would just say that for folks who, let's see, architecturally, it doesn't have a lot of decoration. Gotcha, I get it. But that doesn't divorce the building from its importance as an historic structure. And I think those are things that we tend to forget as we talk about important architecture. And then, you know, perhaps encourage a recommendation that the University of St. Thomas investigate further reuse of this structure, Loris Hall, as part of the new STEAM project. And we've heard today about the costs, but we haven't seen any investigation about those costs or any investigation about potential design. So I think the historic aspect of this building is important, not just for its architect, as the University of St. Thomas representative notes, but for its connection to the seminary, for its connection to the city, for its depth of connection to the history of St. Paul. So those are, there it is. And I can provide some wordsmithing for those concepts, should people need it. And if they're interested in including them. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Commissioner Bazan. Commissioner Douglas.
Oh, okay. So, well, I just want to say, for all the reasons that Barb suggested, but I also just wanted to say that in favor of Loris Hall, because it doesn't sound like with the and I know we're not considering the cost, that we're talking about the historic preservation side, but it doesn't seem like the cost really matters whether they do Plan A or Plan B. And so that's why I believe, I mean, it was like about 100,000, 80,000 for the total cost plus 80 million for the total, and then 20 million for the furniture. So, you know, and then the renovation of Loris Hall, we were at 10 million and another million, so about 11 million. So it sounds like they've got about 70 million left to do the entire project. So I don't see why they can't include it, you know, and also, as I said, for all the reasons, the historic reasons. So that's just what I want to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Douglas. Any other commissioners want to weigh in on this?
I have my hand raised.
Oh, I can't see that, sorry. Commissioner Peroutka.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We heard a lot about Horace Cleveland and Summit Avenue, but I just want to make sure that the record understands that it was Archbishop John Ireland who founded the St. Paul Seminary, not Horace Cleveland. Horace Cleveland designed Summit Avenue, and so I understand why some of the people who gave their addresses Summit Avenue referenced Horace Cleveland. But it was Archbishop John Ireland who founded the St. Paul Seminary, and whose vision is embodied in Loris Hall. Also, regarding the principles of historic preservation for the city of St. Paul, it is an important historic cultural development of the city, as well as the state and the country. St. Paul Seminary, it was for many, many years, for 100 years, the largest seminary, Catholic seminary in the country. As well, the site is culturally significant. It's by an outstanding architect, a master builder, and embodies elements of design, detail, and materials and craftsmanship that represent significant architectural innovation. After all, Cass Gilbert did invent the skyscraper when he built the Woolworth Tower, which is recognized as the first modern skyscraper, one of the three great gifts America gave the world in the 20th century, the other two being jazz and movies. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Peroutka. Was there somebody else who wanted to speak to this?
This is Commissioner McDonald.
Yes, Commissioner McDonald.
Yes. I'm not sure how all this fits in, but it seemed like the applicant had three main categories for dismissing the building in favor of demolition. And the last one was the economic. And I guess I haven't seen enough analysis of how to incorporate the historic building into the new steam building. I don't know if there's been much effort to do that. I would like to see some. The first two items of their three-leg stool sort of ran together for me, but basically they were saying that it's not a historic building. I dispute that. And one question I had, though, was the Hess-Royce report. They mentioned that it said that the building was probably eligible. And I'm wondering if we don't want to invest, and I'm not sure who would pay for it, in a determination of eligibility for the building. Right now, things seem to be a little anecdotal in terms of the nature of its historic character and whether or not it's a proper historic building because it's Cass Gilbert, or maybe it's not one of his most elaborate, whatever. I guess I would like to see a formal determination of eligibility before things proceed any further.
Thank you, Commissioner McDonald. Commissioner Bazat.
Well, I'll wait because I'm sure there are some people who can't, because they're on the phone, they can't raise their hands.
Okay, all right.
But I'm going to leave it up just because.
All right, okay, I won't forget you.
Thank you, Chair.
And is there anybody on the phone who would like to weigh in on this? Any of the commissioners?
Commissioner Wagner.
Yes, hi, Commissioner Wagner.
Waiting my turn again. I live not too far away and have enjoyed this building over the years. It is in many ways, because of its connection to the seminary and the historic landscape that makes up that seminary grounds, an important piece of St. Paul history. So it is a significant building, in part because of Cass Gilbert, but not solely because of Cass Gilbert. There is a connection of buildings that still stands today that is part of a larger collection of buildings that mark a significant piece of landscape development in the city and in the city's history that is, well, maybe the narrowest side of the building is what faces Summit Avenue. That does not diminish its historic importance, does not diminish its connection to the landscape of St. Paul. One can walk through the campus and experience that row of three buildings that include Grace and Cretan as well as other buildings that make up the seminary campus that are now part of St. Thomas. It should be noted that they acquired it in 1982 from the seminary. And I think with that came a responsibility towards those buildings and towards that landscape that has been largely dismissed and ignored in our conversations tonight. I think the university knew full well what they were purchasing and acquiring back in '82, and that is falling short in their evaluations of the significance of this building and its place. I think there's been also very little said by the university to alternatives, and this is, as other people have said, and I will repeat, this is not an either-or situation. St. Thomas can do a STEAM building and build it somewhere else. They can do a STEAM building and incorporate it into Loris Hall. Those are options. They can renovate another building and move whatever is in that building if it's a program that they want to maintain to another location. So they have a fairly large campus. They like to say that they're hemmed in, but it's a generous campus that still has open space available to it. And I do not buy the argument that this is the only place that they could possibly locate a science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics building. And to that end, I also want to state that I think they're ignoring the opportunity, which I made a statement about the last time, where this is their opportunity to show that the past matters and that it can be incorporated into the future, and that legacies matter, and that the history of a place matters. And they can incorporate a new STEAM building into Loris Hall in a very sensitive way if they put their minds to it, and would set a great example for those students who go to St. Thomas to learn and be inspired and to learn the amazing things about engineering, sustainability, environmental stewardship. All the things that they say that Loris is deficient in are opportunities to be explored and created into a potential new development that extols the virtues of how you take an older building and make it part of a sustainable future. So again, they fall short in trying to inspire their own students in that realm. There's been talk about how this building is not one of Cass Gilbert's greatest buildings. You know, it's an early example of Cass Gilbert before he was truly sort of discovered. And I think it's a building that holds great strength of form, particularly as it relates to the other buildings. It's clean lined. It has the strength of pattern and rhythm. It has a nice vertical emphasis that is repeated in these groupings of windows that culminate at the rooftop in wonderful dormers that accentuate that height. The shape and length of it is strong and unusual. So there's lots of architectural integrity in this building, even though it may not be fluted and adorned with all sorts of detail of Beaux-Arts origins. And in some part, this is an interesting example of Cass Gilbert stripped down and being spare and attesting to some of the roots of the seminary and trying to have a sense of spareness that is maybe closer to God. And so there are many, many reasons why this building is important. We would be loath as a historic preservation commission and our duty to the city, and not just to this neighborhood, but to the city as a whole, to say that this building could be torn down. It would be a dereliction of duty on our part. This is part of a district. St. Thomas knows that. And I will maybe rest at that. This is a building to be saved and cherished.
Thank you, Commissioner Wagner. I have a couple of comments I'd like to make. One is that although in Mr. Vansgaard's comments today, he did sort of address how they believe that the demolition doesn't deviate from the HPC guidelines or the Summit guidelines or the Summit Avenue West guidelines or the Department of Interior guidelines. But, in that, the materials that they presented to us, they had these evaluation criteria about what option they were going to choose. And I had to note that there was nothing in any of those evaluation criteria that referenced whether or not the option being evaluated met any of our guidelines that we are obligated to operate under. That is our sole mission. We can't just jettison those guidelines and decide, well, we're going to consider different factors. And the other issue, which I'm a little bit hesitant to weigh into here because it's very sensitive, but we had a lot of letters, or not a lot of letters, we had a number of letters that raised the issue of the fact that it's recently been revealed that Bishop Loris was a slaveholder, and that's a reason for, we should not honor that legacy, and we should approve the demolition of this building. And I understand the people who express that view, and I thought about this a lot. But I would say the way I came down on this is that, rather than demolishing the building to demonstrate a repudiation of Bishop Loris' ownership of slaves, I think it might be preferable, and I think it is preferable, to maintain the building with some accompanying historic context or explanation to say, I think that's an opportunity for education and illumination that, northern states such as Minnesota are not free from the stain of slavery in the United States. And it got me to thinking, I don't know, there's a plaque in the sidewalk on Nicollet Mall reminding us that Dred Scott was brought to the Minnesota Territory then as a slave, and ultimately that went through the Supreme Court and ended up in the terrible Dred Scott decision. But I remember, and I'm a lawyer and I'm a history person, and I knew about all that, but it when I first came across that, it really sort of took me by, kind of stopped me in my tracks and say, well, that's interesting, because, we tend to think of slavery as not being a thing that had anything to do with the North. And so I think that leaving the building there and having an explanation that I think, that this building is an important building, but it was a building that was in honor to, or is named after a person who held slaves, who was a bishop of the Catholic Church. I think that would provoke a lot of discussion and questions among students at the university campus.
Sure.
So with that, I will recognize Commissioner Bazat.
Well, interestingly, my comments had to do exactly with the naming of the building. You don't tear down a building just because of its name. And frankly, that wasn't even the original name. The original name was just North Dormitory. But in the course of being assisted with some research, that absolutely connects to larger history of the city of St. Paul. One of the early graduates, it was in 1902, of the seminary was a Father Stephen Louis Theobald, whom Archbishop Ireland invited to Minnesota to attend the seminary from the Caribbean. He was an African American, And post-graduation, he went on to serve at St. Peter Claver Church, which is just in the heart of the Rondo neighborhood, and served until his unfortunately early death many years later in the 1930s. But there's, if you really want to rename the building, name it for Father Theobald. This guy was a mover and shaker from all accounts that I read in articles. And of course, I haven't had an opportunity to go to any original sources because MHS is closed, and so is the Archdiocese Archives. But he was physically a relatively short man who was about as energetic as a bee, and coalesced that neighborhood of African American Catholics and provided them with not just a safe space, but a socially active space in which to operate. And it was, as much as we can say about Archbishop Ireland, he, by inviting this man, did a great service to the city of St. Paul. So when we talk about an historic building, it isn't just all of the quite elegant, thank you, Commissioner Wagner, descriptions of the building itself, but of its connection to the activities within the seminary and how they were dispersed throughout the communities within the city of St. Paul. And I just see that as a really important feature of just a tiny little piece of the historic importance of both the seminary and this building. There's no proof that Father Theobald actually stayed in this particular dormitory, but the fact that he was there, was graduated from the seminary, and went on to become somewhat of a mover and shaker within the African American community of St. Paul makes a difference.
Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Bazat and Commissioner Peroutka.
Thank you. I'm not quite sure if my raising hand is working. Anyway, just to tack on to what Commissioner Bazat said, something I learned from reading Commissioner Nelson's book on Frederick McGee, Life on the Color Line. Archbishop John Ireland was asked in 1890, only 25 years after the Civil War, and Frederick McGee did convert to Catholicism and was a devout Catholic. But Archbishop John Ireland said, when asked about his views on interracial marriage in 1890, said it was a matter of personal taste. I would be the first one to condemn Bishop Loris. However, he did not found the seminary. Archbishop John Ireland did. Anyway, and I also want to say that I agree with Commissioner Wagner's assessment of the architectural detail of North Hall. In fact, I think it's quite an elegant building. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Goss, I see you have your hand up there.
Yes, I just wanted to interject. It seems like we've had a couple of comments from commissioners about looking at having the eligibility of the building actually determined, actually send through the paperwork for that. And another comment about very little has been said about the alternatives and some alternative spaces and things like that. Perhaps, I don't know if the commission wants to consider, I know we do have a motion on the table, but maybe the commissioners want to consider discussing with the university representatives about postponing this, having a deferral. We only do that with the applicant's permission. If they would like to look into a couple of those items that have been said by the commission. Just a suggestion and thought. So.
What timelines, under what timelines are we working
Well,
this application?
if the university representatives would agree, then the timeline is suspended because there's more information to get. And I would say that I think those two items, the determination of eligibility, Commissioner McDonald suggested, and Commissioner Wagner has said there's very little been said about the alternatives, maybe expanding upon what the alternatives are. So.
Shall we pull the representative?
Pardon me?
I would be, as the motion maker, I would certainly be interested in polling representative to see if the university is interested in engaging in these conversations, because I do think those are issues, the answers to which are missing in our deliberations.
Is there
Madam
anybody
Chair?
from the, yes.
This is Mark Vansgaard. We've listened intently to your conversation and deliberations. And we would need to discuss internally whether we would want to delay this decision or not. And that's something that won't be able to happen yet tonight.
Okay, thank you for that input, Mr. Vansgaard. So I think that means that we have to rule on the pending motion or any amendments to that motion this evening. So are there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion among the commissioners on the pending motion?
This is Nelson. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Nelson.
Yeah, I haven't spoken. I have gone back and forth in my mind many times on this subject, sometimes in surprising ways. I'd like to take a moment first to say, if anybody's still listening who has contributed to this discussion from the community, thank you for doing that. It does make our work more difficult often, but thank you. It's very important. To my fellow commissioners, I think this has been one of the best discussions we've ever had. One of our missions by ordinance is to try to educate the public about what we do in historic preservation. And the thoughtful answers that people have given today, I think maybe contributes to that a little bit. For the public, we have guidance, such as it is, from the city ordinance about what to do when there's an application for demolition. And it basically says we are to weigh some factors. And it's really not more than that. It doesn't tell us what weight to give any particular factor, merely that we are to weigh some factors. So we have some guidance, but it's not terribly helpful. The stronger guidance, in a way, comes from the ordinance that created the Heritage Preservation Commission in 1976, the language that Commissioner Bizot quoted about this being the preservation of our historic places and spaces being a public necessity for the health and welfare and prosperity of the city of St. Paul. That's extremely strong language. And there is only one agency, if you want to call that, of the city whose job it is to take care to preserve that. That said, I think we have to acknowledge also that the presentation that the University of St. Thomas has made is a very strong one. There are many parts of their proposed motion, which you can find at the end of their response to the staff report, that to me are undeniably true. One is that the fact that this is a Cass Gilbert building in itself is not enough. I agree that this is not a particularly distinguished building. I don't agree that that doesn't make it historically significant. As others have noted, that building in a way tells a story of these three remarkable figures in our history. I think it's the only building standing that has the fingerprints of all three, of Hill, Ireland, and Cass Gilbert. And the simplicity of building that resulted, you can see, or you can put together the story that it's those three egos competing with one another that resulted in the building that we have. So there's a story there, and as Commissioner Bazat noted, there is another story there about Father Theobald, who is a remarkable and unique character in our city's history, who graduated from the seminary in 1810, not 1902, Commissioner Bazat, but close enough.
Sorry.
There are stories there. On the other hand, I think it's also undeniable, as UST maintains, that if you look at the economic value of Loris Hall compared with what's proposed, well, there's an enormous imbalance there. And we are left, as commissioners, weighing historic significance, maybe architectural significance, against the economic factors, again, without much guidance from our ordinance, and we are guided by our ordinances and by nothing else. Some people may think that we're guided by our whims and our preferences. That's not the case. We're guided only by our ordinances. So I find this an extremely difficult and troubling decision for us to make. To my surprise, I've come to the conclusion that St. Thomas has made the case that all things considered, Loris Hall can be demolished without undue damage to our historic heritage. I know I'm in a minority. I totally respect the opinions of others, but I do think it was important for me and for all of us to explain how we come to the conclusions that we have come to. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Excuse me. Any other commissioners want to weigh in on this discussion?
This is Commissioner George.
Yes, Commissioner George.
I just wanted to say that listening very carefully to all that has been said regarding this building, and also regarding the rules and guidelines that we go work under, I want to say that Commissioner Wagner's argument, in my opinion, I think was a great thing, and I will support to prevent tearing down the building.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Any other commissioners want to continue deliberation on this motion? If not, I will close the deliberation and call for a vote on the pending motion. And Commissioner Bazat, maybe, I'm sorry to ask you to do this, but could you restate the motion for us once more?
Motion itself is quite simple. to deny the application for demolition of Loris Hall at the University of St. Thomas as per the findings of fact and conditions in the resolution. Presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report. That is the motion.
Okay, thank you. And that is the motion that was seconded by Commissioner Douglas, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. So I'll call for a vote on that motion. Commissioner George?
I approve of the motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Bazat?
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas?
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson?
Hello?
Commissioner Nelson?
No.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Peroka?
In favor.
Thank you. Commissioner Wagner?
Yes.
Thank you. So that motion is passed. And the application for demolition of Loris Hall is denied. So our final item of business tonight is the pre-application at 300 Ryan Avenue, which is new infill construction. And Mr. Goss, it looks like we're looking to you for that one as well.
Yep, so this is a pre-application for an empty lot in Irving Park Historic District. This pre-application discussion, no HPC action will be taken on this. A new single-family residential structure with attached garage is proposed for the lot. The structure at 302 Ryan Avenue was moved into the district after the period of significance. In September of 2018, the commission found that the architectural and historic merit of the building to be poor and lacked integrity of location, setting, design, materials, feeling. The demolition was also found not to have an adverse impact on surrounding historic buildings, so the building was demolished. After the demolition, the lot was split, creating 300 Ryan, the lot that we're going to talk about tonight. Siding, roofing, building setback, and garage placement as proposed in the design all meet their guidelines. There are 4 areas that are not meeting our guidelines right now. One is new construction. This is from the Irving Park new construction guidelines, section 74.102C. New construction, though stylistically diverse, Irving Park architecture demonstrates similar organization of massing, rhythm, materials, and building elements, which together express a harmony and continuity in the streetscape. The construction should incorporate the general massing, rhythm, materials, and building elements of historic Irving Park structures and should be sensitive to the architectural styles evidenced in the park. Currently, the design does not meet this guideline. Irving Park neighborhood has some specific architectural characteristics, and I included a style sheet in the packet. They're 2-story structures. They have a front-facing gable. They have a full facade 1-story front porch. There's a heavy cornice and frieze, and then there's simple detail. The structure as proposed is more detailed and really lacks these characteristics. So the second is massing. New construction should conform to the massing of existing historic structures, respecting the height, volume, and scale of the neighborhood. Most buildings are 2 or 3 stories in height, 3 or 4 bays wide, and 20 to 40 feet high. The height of the new construction should be no lower than the average height of all the buildings surrounding the park. Measurements should be made from street level to the highest point of the roof. And with this one, because it is a pre-application, we're not sure on the massing. As designed, it appears that the structure will conform to nearby massing. A streetscape should be worked out for the commission to review. We do believe there's some issues with the roof, which brings me into item number 3, building elements, roofs, and chimneys. Gable, hip, and mansard roofs are the most common forms in Irving Park. These forms are used with great variety, offering several options for new construction roof profiles. New roof and chimney designs should be compatible with existing adjacent structures. And as proposed, the nested gable on the hip roof really isn't found on any contributing structures in Irving Park. We really have a dominant style of a front-facing gable. There are a few structures that are not front-facing gable, but they're really the minority of the structures, the contributing structures in the district. And I want to make this very clear. These evaluations are based on contributing structures in Irving Park, not the newer structures that we do have some townhomes and apartments that have been built in Irving Park over the years that are not contributing. Then the last issue, windows and doors. The proportion, size, and detailing of windows and doors in new construction should relate to the facade openings of existing adjacent buildings. The windows on the contributing structures in Irving Park are predominantly a 1/1 or a 6/6. 4/1 windows, which are proposed in this new construction, really aren't seen on contributing buildings. Existing area windows don't contain arches or even faux arches, which are proposed on this building, and bay windows aren't common either. So staff feels like this although it's a nice effort, this structure really needs some work to be the first new construction in Irving Park since 1982. So, questions?
I have questions. This is Nelson.
Go ahead.
Yes, Commissioner.
Thanks, George. Very interesting report. I drove around there today. Maybe you can help clarify some things for me. As you noted, there's an enormous variety of styles around Irving Park. There's some pretty ornate Queen Anne's at 40, 50, 56 Irving Place. The photographs that you included in your report are of the much simpler looking examples from the area. So that raised a question for me. When you conclude that some of these features like the bay window and the gable on a mansard roof are non-conforming, are you, to put it in a way that I would only put it when we've been in a meeting for 4 hours, picking and choosing, or is there a bigger, do I miss something?
Well, whenever we have new construction, we always look at the surrounding structures. So the structures in the little sheet that I put together are all structures that are within a few feet, really, of this lot. Neighboring structures either side and structures that down the block just a little ways. Yeah, I mean, you could take the whole of the district and find all kinds of different structures, but it really isn't going to tell the same story to have a Grand Victorian back here with a lot of simple gable-facing one-story porch structures. I mean, that's a little different to the development that what happened in Irving Park. So.
Oh, I see. If I could just continue my question, then I guess this might be the case. Your analysis is really kind of based on that stretch of Ryan, rather than in the district or even the park area itself. And it sounds like there's an attempt to some degree, recreate what was lost.
Well, not so much recreate what was lost, but actually have it be compatible with the nearby structures. and you know, something like this is why a streetscape would be so good for us to have, so we could see the nearby structures, which are both contributing, and how the new one would fit into that street, what that would look like.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Maybe if I could just ask one more about the window designs. Again, I saw some, as you mentioned, you know, they're 6 panels and 4 panels, and how important do you think it is? I would guess there were 4 or 5 different window designs. Again, I'm including going around the park, not just Ryan Avenue. But how important is it not to add one more window design to the cornucopia of window designs in the area?
Well, and that's the argument for the commission, really. I mean, you know, in the end, this I do believe this is going to be a new structure that you're going to be able to tell is a new structure. I don't think there's going to be any mystery that it wasn't built in 2021. So maybe it's good enough that it gets close. Maybe not. So it'd be a good debate topic.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Any other questions for staff on this pre-application? Hearing none. Is the applicant here to address this application or the pre-application? I just want to once again ask if there's anybody on behalf of the applicant here on 300 Ryan Avenue to address this pre-application.
They've been in. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Hello?
Hello. Yes. Yep.
Yes, we are present.
Okay. Would you like to address the commission on your application or your pre-application?
Yeah. Thank you. And I'm glad everyone could hang on here for this meeting here and wait for us. So when we
thank you for waiting for us.
Hey, we only had to charge our cell phone 2 times. So yeah, when we designed the home, we went around the neighborhood, obviously put a lot of work into it. We work in St. Paul quite a bit. You guys, we just did a house with you guys on Summit Avenue. And, you know, as far as just some of the details, I'll go over some of the no's. You know, the no on the new construction guideline, one of them was, you know, bay windows. And, you know, 56 Irvine and 42 Irvine both had bay windows. And 42 Irvine, I think, is just a beautiful home and has, you know, just a great project. And we based a lot of this home, some of the stuff, the 2nd story balcony off of it. So we put a lot of thought in this. And if there's details that we can tweak to conform, we have no problems with that at all. Especially with the windows, that's a non-issue with us. If you guys would like them to be the 1/1 or the 6/6 or whatever, that's really easy for us to work. But we'd like to keep the overall look of the home if possible with changing some small details. We're more than open to listening to suggestions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the commissioner or from the commissioners for the application?
Well, this is Nelson again.
Yes, Commissioner Nelson.
The bay windows, you know, I got to say, I like the looks of them. I think the house looks great, actually. I understand the objection that nothing else on Ryan Avenue has bay windows. How important are the bay windows to you?
Well, I don't know, I think they're a big part of that front facade. And, you know, I guess when we designed this home, we certainly didn't stick to Ryan Avenue. To be honest with you, Ryan Avenue doesn't have that much historic architecture to me. And, you know, that's why we went around Irvine Park, and that's where we saw more of these bay windows. You know, again, we like to work with you guys. We're open to suggestions. I think it's a nice look. And like I said, the 2 houses down on 42 Irvine, there's bay windows, and then 56 Irvine, there's bay windows. And those 2 homes are pretty historic homes. They're not, you know, I don't know, the townhomes over there or anything like that. We didn't compare to those. We'd like to keep it again, but if we need to take some details off of that, like I said, we have the windows. We can totally work with you on that. And you know, if you see any other ideas with the gable hip or anything, we're open to suggestions. But I would like to keep the bay windows if possible.
And I would like to add something. My name is Tony with Sharkey Design Build. The house on 42 Irvine, the bay windows do face Ryan Avenue, even though the address is on Irvine. So that is on the same street as us, and we wanted to carry that same flow down the street towards our property on 300 Ryan Avenue.
Yeah, for what it's worth, this is Commissioner Nelson again. You did exactly what I did, which was look at the whole area extended, not just Ryan Avenue. And I think at this early stage of things, I would say the bay windows would not be a problem for me, but I only have 1 vote. That's all.
This is Commissioner George.
Yes, Commissioner George.
I would just like to agree with Commissioner Nelson that I think that the bay windows look very nice on the front of the house, and I don't find that a problem either.
Commissioner Bazat.
Just a comment from knowing the neighborhood and taking a look at the design. It kind of seems like there's a lot of historical stuff pasted on in order to make it look more like the stuff that surrounds the park itself. This particular neighborhood is a little more modest. And I think scaling down some of those exterior features would make it more compatible with the surrounding structures. I mean, as a standalone design, it's kind of delightful, you know, to be honest. But as an infill structure, and again, as staff George Gauze mentioned, having a streetscape view would be helpful, but my sense upon looking at both the design and knowing the streetscape is that it would be sort of overwhelming, which is not the intent of infill housing within an historic district. So well, let me pull it back up again. I've got my computer up for this. The 2nd-story porch, the bays, and the cross gable and the double gable feel almost like too much icing on the cake. Pardon? I heard somebody else talking. Was I? At any rate, that is my impression of it, and I would encourage, as much as it would be hurtful, perhaps, a little simplification in order for it not to overwhelm the other much more modest residences in the outer edges of the Irvine Park District. As old as those other houses are, they reflect not the cream of the crop folks, you know, not the folks who had a lot of money and could build on the park itself and on the edges of the park. So just, you know, that little distance away, that is would be my recommendation.
Thank you, Commissioner Bazat.
Could the applicant speak, or are we over?
And no, you can respond to that, yes.
Okay. No, I appreciate your thoughts. And I guess, you know, working a lot in St. Paul and doing a lot of projects down there, when I took this project on, I guess I went the other route of, I mean, there's so much architecture in Irvine Park that it blows my mind. We love it. And it was just, you know, to pull it back, I mean, that one house away is 42 Irvine, and there's so much detail in that home, and it's beautiful. You know, again, we want to work with you, but I mean, we want to fit into the neighborhood. I guess when we did the design, we went around Irvine Park, not around, I guess, the blocks away. I understand that those houses aren't, you know, the ones that are in the Irvine Park necessarily, but you know, I really think that this will fit in nicely. I am building 2 other homes. There will be 3 homes there. And we put a lot of, you know, I really wanted to fit in and have nice architecture. And I guess it wasn't my plan at all to make it seem like this is a really prominent home in any way. The details have been thought out. And again, we're not trying to, you know, make it seem like a couple $1 million home or anything. But again, we're looking at the architecture of the Irvine Park homes that are very, very historic. And that's kind of what we are basing our designs off of.
This is Nelson again. I have one more question.
Yes, Commissioner Nelson.
Have you guys had conversations with the Irvine Park Homeowners Association, or whatever they call their group there?
Yes, I have. I have had coffee with all of them and showed them all of our plans, and you could ask them yourselves, but they were ecstatic on what we were doing. They were very worried that we were going to put in duplexes because it's zoned for duplexes also, and worried that we weren't going to build homes to fit into the neighborhood. And what we showed them, they were ecstatic, and I would encourage you to talk to them. It's like, again, before I even started design, I met with them.
Oh, that was very wise of you.
Been around the block a couple times in St. Paul. I know the neighbors have a ton of say, you know.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, this is George Gause with staff. You need to clarify that statement. I've been in contact with the Irving Park Neighborhood Association. They didn't know anything about this project. Did you talk with the nearby neighbors, or did you talk with the neighborhood association?
George, I can 100% send you emails. I talked to the president of the Irvine Park Association. I don't recall her name right now. And I had coffee with all the neighbors. I invited them all out. I could pull documentation from that. And so I don't know why they wouldn't know anything about it, but I 100%, I printed off documents to show them, and I've kept them in the loop as we started to design also.
Okay, because I had a conversation with Elise Jensen, who's the president, and she was very surprised that no one had seen anything for this property. And I gave them a copy of the plans. I have gotten comments back from several neighbors that have concerns. So when we do go to an actual public hearing, that those are comments that will, depending on the design, that they will be made part of the public record and given to the commissioners. So we don't do that. We don't do the public comment at this feedback stage.
I understand 100%. I don't know where the miscommunication came from, but she is fully aware of who's building those homes and what's going on there. I don't, maybe not this exact home after when we showed her concepts. This is actually the finished home. So I don't know if she just doesn't remember, but I definitely have email communications, and I have met with them in person.
Okay. It may be a situation where staff's going to have to get more involved in the future with neighborhoods and applications, just to make sure it's equitable for everybody, just to make sure that the applicants, if they do communicate with people, then the neighborhoods don't say that we don't know anything about this, or vice versa, because it seems like, you know, we have this with this, we had it with the previous. So maybe we'll set up a meeting that you guys could come to, and we could zoom in the rest of these neighborhood folks and just be a fly on the wall and hear some of the conversation. So We can talk more about that. Okay.
Okay, are there any other comments that anybody wants to provide to the on this structure to sort of guide them?
Commissioner Wagner, I have a question for the applicant.
Okay, Commissioner Wagner.
Can you elaborate on, are these speculative homes that you're building for sale? Is that what I would understand?
No, you're incorrect. This house is already pre-sold. And then I have so I have 3 lots, and we are working on the design.
I'm not sure
for
that
the
quite
second
addresses
one.
the question, just if I could clarify, because pre-sold is different than specifically designed for an individual client. I think there might be some differentiation in the notion of designed and then pre-sold versus custom designed for a particular client.
Okay, yeah, this is custom designed for a particular client.
And they came to you wanting this particular style, or did you create this style and then they wanted to buy it? Or like?
Yeah, we had some concepts of pictures of what we thought would fit into the neighborhood, and this is one that they picked. This is an Italianate, and we designed it off of that. So it was designed from the ground up for a client.
Okay, so it sounds like maybe a little bit of a mix. You had a concept that was similar, and then you sold the lot and then worked with them to create a more refined version of concept.
That's fair to say.
Okay. The other 2 properties, are you proposing similar concepts for those?
They won't know. Well, we will propose, it depends. The clients that we're working with now, they're going with, it slips my mind right now, but we're just starting. It's just it fits into the neighborhood really well, I think. It's a 2-story, similar to this, but it has 2 decks on it. Almost looks like something from New Orleans. It's a really great look. We're going to get that in front of HPC real soon. And the other 3rd lot is not designed yet. I have a Victorian design for that one. But that's a concept. The client could come in and say whatever they want, as long as it fits our guidelines. Your guidelines is what we try to follow.
Understand that. So that it complicates the sort of the understanding, and frankly, it makes your job a little bit more interesting, and maybe in a good way, in that you don't have one design that you're going to repeat 3 times, which I think that's what I'm hearing. Would that be fair to say?
No, well, I've never built the same house twice. I guess, I mean, everyone will be different.
You're confirming what I'm saying. Like, you're not going to build the same house.
Oh no, yeah, I want 3 different homes that are going to be there that are all going to be standing on their own. We actually had one of the clients that are working on the middle lot really loved the look of this, and I said that we're not going to design this home again.
Yeah. So I'm unusual on this commission, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm an architect, not everybody is, which is a good thing, by the way. But my architectural background is to be what I might refer to as a contextualist, meaning that where you're going and how you're designing is influenced by what's around you and the sort of heritage of a place. Not to be confused with trying to be a historicist. I sit on a HPC commission, but I'm actually rather against fake history and buildings that gather a bunch of details from different eras, different buildings, and sort of try to recreate some sort of mashup image of a historic home. which is a tough position to be in on this commission, because we're not allowed to tell you how to design a building. There's guidelines for how to scale and mass and create general compatibility, but also differentiation, and then creating something that is maybe potentially, hopefully, of its time. But historians will walk through and see a new building that has historic detailing in it and know right away that it's not an original building. General public maybe less keen-eyed in terms of that. And so I'm always a little careful about how to design so we don't get a Disney Town Center kind of feel to things, where and I'm sort of rambling on. So just to clarify my question, I think it would be good to tone down the detailing, stick to the massing, rhythm, scale questions, features, even the bay window. I don't mind the notion of a bay window or porches and all of that, but it's the detailing that I think wants to be a little bit toned down, so it's very clear that this is a new building in a historic district, rather than trying to appease people who want a historic outcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Wagner. Any other comments for the applicant on this pre-application? If not, then I just encourage you to kind of take the comments that you've received today into consideration, and work with staff to maybe revise your plans as you see appropriate, for sure. And then we will see you at the final application stage.
I just have one more question, and this is Tony.
Yeah.
The Irvine Park District has a period of significance between 1848 and 1910. And this property is located in that district, and the other houses that are built on Ryan Avenue that you want us to mimic are not built in that period of significance. There's a lot of vinyl siding, and we just want to be clear on what direction we need to go with our architect here.
Yeah, right across the street are those, I don't know what they are, townhomes or with red vinyl siding, and we're just taking notes on all your feedback and kind of dumb it down a little bit. I mean, we still want it. I guess, I don't know. It's hard to dumb down this plan, but we'll make it work the best we can. And we'll try to stick with good materials and come back with a final application and fit into the neighborhood.
Well, right, and I would encourage you, to continue to work with staff, because, they've had the benefit of our comments and your input and our, kind of this exchange. So I think that they will be helpful to you in terms of kind of refining this before you get to the final application stage.
And this Commissioner Wagner again, I would just comment, I hear you say dumb down, and frankly, it's not the terminology I would use. It would be simplify, and frankly, think about sophistication of design and the elegance that can be achieved through simplification, not making it quote unquote dumb, because nobody wants a dumb looking building.
Got it.
Okay, well, if there's no further input on that pre-application, I believe we're to the end of our business tonight. Oops, we have somebody, Barb, Commissioner Bazat, yes?
I think I was jumping the gun. I'm just waiting to
Oh, you're waiting to make the motion. Okay.
introduce a motion.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Really did across all.
Second, Douglas.
Thank you, Commissioner Douglas. Anybody opposed to that motion? All right. Thanks, you guys.
Nope.
You're dead if you do.